Happy HALLO-WEEK, everyone. I'm Haley.
And I'm Andrea.
And this is Inhuman, a true crime podcast. So today we are queuing up all the spooky vibes since it is almost Halloween. In today's episode, we are going to be talking about the Whaley House, aka the Travel Channel's most haunted house in America.
Ooh, I'm so excited.
I was really excited to dive into this story because I really don't look into ghost stories that often.
Yeah.
I never actually really got into them until I started listening to And That's Why We Drink, which if you guys haven't listened to that podcast, I highly recommend it. Each week, the one host covers a ghost or spooky story, and then the other one covers a true crime story. And I love it, and that's what got me into spooky stories, listening to them. But I don't really look into them myself, so this was super fun for me to dig into. I know Andrea loves all the ghost, witchy, spooky vibes.
Yes, I'm all about that. I like stuff that's substantial. I don't want some podunk, made up, unbelievable story about some, zombie or something. Give me the good stuff. I want the hauntings and the witches and all that good stuff.
I feel like you have so many good ghost stories too. We need to do an episode of just our personal. Maybe we could do a listeners episode at some point and do our ghost stories plus if any of our listeners have stories.
Yeah, that would be super cool. On that note,
good segue.
Yeah, that was a really good segue. So, we had been suggesting for you guys, if you have case suggestions, to email us. And I know that we do occasionally give out our email address on the episodes, but we now actually have it linked in our link tree. So it's not one of the boxes, but it's at the very top before the boxes begin, and it's literally just a little envelope, and you can click it and it just boop pops up, and the email address is already there, and all you guys have to do is put case suggestions, or now you can put listener tales. I guess that's what we'll call it. Whatever. We might come up with a better name because I think Morbid uses that, but I like it nonetheless. But whatever you guys want to put in the subject line, but that's just the easier way for you guys to email us. So, and the link tree is in our bio of our Instagram, which is Inhuman_podcast.
Yep,
that's all.
Andrea figured out how to set that up, and that is very helpful. So thank you, Andrea.
You're very welcome. I'm tech savvy. Look at me.
Well, I was going to say, when you were describing the icon that's at the top, I was about to say the email signal, and then you said envelope, and I was like, oh yeah, it is an envelope.
It is.
I'm just oh my God.
But it's also the email emblem or symbol too. So but whatever generation you happen to relate to, that's what it is.
Yeah. Oh my God. That
scared me too. I almost peed a little, actually.
Pregnancy thing.
Yeah, exactly.
No, our mailman just walked up, so my dog went crazy. But anyway, one other really quick thing before we get into today's story. I wanted to let you guys know that we will be releasing a bonus spooky episode on Saturday, October 30th. Yay. To give you all the spooky vibes as we experience HALLO-WEEKEND 2021. So Andrea is going to be covering a very spooky case, and I am so excited because I don't think I've ever actually heard the story. So stay tuned. We're not going to tell you what it is yet, but it's going to be really good.
It is. I started doing my research today, just a little bit, and I was like, whoa.
I'm so excited. So that will be releasing at our normal time, which is 8 a.m. Eastern, 5 a.m. Pacific, on Saturday morning. We asked on Instagram if you'd rather have a bonus on Saturday or on actual Halloween, and most people voted for Saturday, so that's what we're going with.
Yep.
You can listen to it while you prepare all your spooky snacks for your Halloween parties.
Exactly.
So we are going to be covering the Whaley House today, and first of all, I just want to say I really like this one because it is spelled like my name with a W in front of it. So if you didn't know, I'm Haley. This is my voice, and my name is spelled the most basic spelling of Haley, just Haley, And Whaley House is Whaley. So it's like my name with a W in front of it. And I just thought that was kind of cool. So I wanted to share that.
Yeah. It was meant to be.
Yeah. So, and this actually was suggested by somebody. I have no clue where, if it was on Instagram, on my personal Instagram, I cannot remember, but somebody suggested this. So thank you. I'm sorry that I don't know your name. We will try to, whenever we cover a case that someone suggests, we'll try to shout you out. And I'm so sorry. And if you remind me that you were the one, I will give you a shout out in the next episode because I feel bad.
Yes.
But thank you because this was perfect to look into this week. So the Whaley House is in San Diego, California, which I know we have a lot of international listeners. So if you don't know, San Diego is in Southern California. I was actually there this past weekend. And I kind of wanted to go visit the Whaley House, but also I'm too terrified and I don't think Rob would go. So, I didn't even bring it up. But as I mentioned, the Whaley House was ranked by the Travel Channel as the most haunted house in America. And it's also been ranked by other things. Like I think Life magazine ranked it as a super haunted house and it's gotten some other rankings. So it's definitely really spooky and known for being spooky.
Wow.
Now, it is called the Whaley House because in the 1800s, a man bought the property that it is on and built a house for his family. And his name was, drumroll please, Thomas Whaley. So, I know, big surprise there.
Yeah.
So to start off this story, I'm basically going to cover the full history of the Whaley family because I found it super interesting and a lot of podcasts that I've heard cover this case don't really tell their history, and I just think it's interesting. So yeah, I'm going to share that and buckle in because it's kind of a lot, but this is the history of the Whaley family. So Thomas Whaley was born on October 5th, 1823 in New York City. He had 7 other siblings, but he was the one to take over his father's business relations in New York when he grew up. On January 1st, 1849, Thomas left New York City to take part in the California Gold Rush. So he was in San Francisco in Northern California for a few years, and then in September 1851, he moved down to San Diego. And this was actually, I looked it up because I was like, I feel like I never realized that California was founded, for some reason I was like, was California founded in the 1850s? Like, what the heck? And it was, and I looked it up, and when he moved down there in 1851, it was about a year and a half after the city of San Diego had been founded.
Okay.
I don't know, it just seemed weird to me. I was like, San Diego was founded that long ago, but I guess it was.
That to me seems like late to the game, kind of. I don't know.
Really?
Kind of.
I just see San Diego as newer compared to San Francisco.
Yeah.
I don't know, but it's apparently not. So Whaley actually returned to New York in 1853 to marry his high school sweetheart. So on August 14th, 1853, Thomas Whaley and Anna Eloise Delany, I think, were married in the city. 4 months later, the newlyweds moved back to San Diego, where they resided for the next 4 years. On December 28th, 1854, Anna gave birth to the couple's first son, Francis Hinton Whaley. Francis was actually named after a business partner of Thomas's, and I thought that was interesting to throw in there because I just feel like that shows how important business was to Thomas. He just, you know, clearly that was a big part of his life.
Yeah.
In 1855, Thomas Whaley purchased some land in San Diego, and we're going to go more into the land that he purchased and the actual house a little bit later on. But for now, you just need to know he purchased some land and began construction on a new home for his family. During the construction of the house on August 18th, 1856, their second son, Thomas Whaley Jr., was born. And then about a year later, on August 22nd, 1857, the family moved into the home that Thomas had built. The address of this home was 2476 San Diego Avenue in San Diego, California. And this is the house that would later be known as the Haunted Whaley House. So, sadly, just a few months after the family moved into the house, Thomas Whaley Jr. contracted scarlet fever, and he passed away at just 18 months old on January 29th, 1858.
Ugh, that's so tragic.
So this was the first of many deaths in the house.
Okay.
6 months after this, their third child, Anna Amelia, was born on June 27th, 1858. And then not long after that, a fire destroyed the convenience store that the Whaleys owned in town. So with all of this turmoil, the death of their son, the fire, the family decided to move up to San Francisco. About 6 months after that, in January 1859, Whaley decided to basically turn all of his remaining affairs down in San Diego over to a business associate named Frank Ames. So at this point, they had moved up to San Francisco. Thomas had sold off all of his business down in San Diego, but they did still own the Whaley House.
Okay.
While they were in San Francisco, they had 3 more children: George Hay Ringgold on November 5th, 1860, Violet Eloise on October 14th, 1862, and Corinne Lillian on September 4th, 1864.
Oh, I love those names. Those are cute.
I know. In mid-1868, with the family still living in San Francisco, Thomas Whaley decided to invest some of the capital that he had gotten doing business in San Francisco. So he purchased some new merchandise for a store, like a convenience store, I think, and headed back down to San Diego. Over the next few months, actually, before I say this, I did hear in one source that it was partially because of the earthquake that happened in San Francisco, and that's like part of the reason they moved back down to San Diego, but I only heard that in one source, so I'm not 100% sure.
Okay.
So over the next few months, he fixed up the old Whaley house, just kind of cleaned it up because nobody had been living there, and on December 12th, 1868, the entire Whaley family arrived back in San Diego and moved back into the house. Over the next few years, the family experienced quite a bit of turmoil while living in the house. On January 5th, 1882, both Violet and Anna got married. Anna, the daughter, not the mom.
Okay.
Got married inside of the Whaley house. And Anna actually married her first cousin, John T. Whaley.
Okay.
So, you do you, but yeah.
Go off, girl.
Yeah. And Violet married a man named George T. Bertolacci. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but George.
George.
Shortly after they got married, Violet's new husband, George, revealed to her in a letter that he had a very tumultuous past. So because of this, they got a divorce, and Violet was clouded in scandal. Like, at this time, getting a divorce was like the worst thing, and even though she didn't do anything wrong and it was this guy that was like a total shithead, she was treated like she was the one that did wrong.
The women always get blamed, especially back then.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So she was heartbroken and extremely depressed over everything that was going on, how she was being treated. And just a trigger warning here, at the age of 22, on August 19th, 1885, Violet shot herself in the chest with her father's .32 caliber gun.
Wow.
Yeah. So she actually did this in like one of the back house kind of things, or like behind the house. Mm-hmm. And her father found her and carried her inside to the parlor where she passed away.
That's so sad.
And her suicide note was actually a poem. And I don't know if it's an actual Edgar Allan Poe poem or if Edgar Allan Poe just like read it or referenced it, but he had something to do with it. And it read, quote, "Mad from life's history, swift to death's mystery, glad to be hurled anywhere out of this world." Which is just like so heartbreaking.
That is.
I know.
It's deep.
It's so sad. Like, all she did was marry somebody that she believed to be a good person, and he wasn't, and it ruined her life.
Mm-mm. Don't let men ruin your life, or women, or whoever.
Yeah. Thankfully, we live in a little bit of a better time, but, it's not 100%, so.
Yeah.
So after this, obviously the family was still kind of like surrounded by scandal, and the youngest Whaley daughter, Corinne Lillian, had been engaged to be married at this time. But Violet's death brought even more scandal to the family, and Corinne's fiance broke off her engagement. So just lots of bad things happening to the family. They just kept running into bad luck.
Dude, was this house built on like a burial, like a old Native American burial site or something with like lots of like do not disturb us bad juju?
Not quite, but you will find out.
Okay.
There definitely was bad juju.
Yeah.
So with all of these tragic events that happened while the family was living in the Whaley house, Thomas Whaley actually decided to build a new single-story home for the family. So the family eventually moved into 933 State Street in downtown San Diego, and this left the Whaley house vacant for more than 20 years.
Whoa.
So following this move, in December 1888, Francis Whaley, the oldest son, married a woman named Susan E. Murray in Mendocino, California. So he was off living that life. 2 years later, on December 14th, 1890, Thomas Whaley sadly passed away in the home on State Street.
Oh, so the dad.
The dad, yeah.
Okay,
I know there's like reuse of names and stuff, but yes, the dad.
Okay.
So over the next 15 years, Anna, who was now a widow, lived at the single-story home on State Street. Her middle daughter died 15 years later on December 12th, 1905, and this was Anna Amelia, the one that married her first cousin. And then finally in 1909, the eldest Whaley son, Francis, decided to begin restoring the old Whaley house, which they still owned, but nobody was living in it. And his intention was turning the historical home into kind of like a tourist attraction. Okay. And it was noted in one source that his plan was to entertain visitors with his guitar playing. I just thought that was like adorable. Yeah. So in 1912, the house was all fixed up, and the three remaining Whaley children, Corinne, Francis, and George, moved into the old Whaley home with their mother. However, a year later, on February 24th, 1913, Anna Whaley passed away at 80 years old. Which, like, girl, you lived to 80? That's pretty damn good.
Yeah. And it wasn't any, like, tragic, horrible,
not that
accidental,
I could find.
Like, okay.
Yeah,
probably just natural causes. Okay.
But she also passed away in the Whaley house.
Okay.
Yeah. A year later, on November 19th, 1914, Francis Whaley passed away. So George and Corinne were the two remaining of the immediate Whaley family. They were living in the Whaley house. And then, like, almost 15 years later, George passed away on January 5th, 1928. And Corinne actually lived to be 89 years old, which, like, wow, that's really good. Like, this was, you know, the early to mid 1900s. I don't know. I feel like that's pretty impressive.
I think so. With all the, like, diseases and illnesses.
Yeah.
Like, that took people's lives so early. That's, 89 is pretty good.
Yeah. And she passed away in 1953, which, like, when I first read that, my initial thought was, wait, that can't be right mathematically, because I feel like the 1800s feel like so long ago, and then 1953 doesn't feel like that long ago. Even though it's like actually a really long time ago still.
Yeah.
But yeah, because she was born in 1864, so she died in 1953 at 89 years old, so it makes sense. But yeah, it just hit, I was like, whoa.
You're like, we're in the 1950s now? Like, whoa, how do we get here?
Right. But anyway, she lived in the house until her death in 1953. So she was the remaining Whaley resident of the house, and she was there until she died.
Okay.
So that is the history of the Whaley family. And if you couldn't already guess, one of the reasons that the house is so haunted is because of all the Whaley family members who passed away inside the home. Mm-hmm. So 7 years after Corinne passed away, the Whaley House was opened by a public museum. So the Whaley House Museum was officially opened on May 25th, 1960. The San Diego Historical Shrine Foundation, which is a nonprofit organization that was formed in 1956, was who managed the museum. And one of the heads of that company, June Strudwick Redding, was the director of the Whaley House Museum from its opening in 1960 until her death in 1998. So this was like her baby. Like, she was the director, the manager of this house.
Okay.
And then since the year 2000, the house has been maintained by the Save Our Heritage organization. And actually in 2007, a caretaker moved into the house, and I believe he now lives there and cares for the property to prevent theft and vandalism. I don't know if it's the same person that still lives there, and I couldn't find if, like, there is somebody who still lives there, but at least for a while there was, like, a live-in caretaker. Okay, so now I'm just gonna go over, like, a brief overview of the house, and then we'll get into, like, the hauntings and the spooky shit that's happened there.
Okay.
So, as I mentioned before, the house was built by Thomas Whaley with construction beginning on May 6th, 1856. It took about a year to complete, and its total cost was $10,000, which in today's money is about $315,000, which I feel like that's nothing.
Yeah, and I mean, if you think about a house in San Diego now for $300,000, that would be like a shack, probably.
Yeah.
So, I mean, here you could definitely get a decent house for that amount of money. But,
Right.
yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I kind of expected it to be more, but I guess because it was like an up-and-coming city, maybe it just wasn't as big yet.
Yeah.
So the house was a beautiful 2 or 3 story Greek revival style house, and it was super magnificent for the time, and even now it's beautiful. It was made from all brick, and it was the first all brick house to appear in San Diego.
Wow.
And it was known as the finest in Southern California at the time, and it was pretty much considered a mansion.
Okay.
The interior of the house was just as beautiful, fully furnished with mahogany and rosewood pieces of furniture, carpets from Brussels, and beautiful long drapes. So as you can imagine, it was just like super fancy, super nice
luxurious
house.
Yeah.
Yeah. The house also functioned as different things for the town at different times. When Thomas Whaley was remodeling the house in 1868 for his family to move back into, he transformed the upstairs bedroom into a theater and rented it out to the Tanner Troupe, which was a local theater troupe that was traveling through San Diego at the time.
Oh, cool.
So the bedroom was transformed into like a small little theater with a stage and benches, and from people who have gone there, it's a pretty small little theater, but they still fit 150 guests on opening night.
Wow. You're like,
yeah,
a small bedroom, and I'm picturing like 30, 40 people maybe.
Yeah.
It's like 100 and, what'd you say, 140?
150.
150.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which I read somewhere that, I didn't write this down, but like they basically told the women to not wear their like big skirts and coats for opening night because they were like, there's not going to be room.
You have to squeeze in.
Yeah. So this was the city's first commercial theater, and it was, going great, but the theater operator, Thomas Tanner, died 17 days after the Tanner Troupe's opening.
Oh.
So, I don't think he died in the house, but still a connection
related
to the house, someone that died. And sadly, the Tanner Troupe disbanded a few months after that. So for some time, another part of the house also functioned as a convenience store that was called the Whaley and Crosthwaite General Store. And then in 1869, a room in the Whaley House was leased to the county of San Diego to function as a county courthouse. So one room that used to be like a granary became the courthouse. And then the county also leased 3 of the upstairs bedrooms to use as offices and record storage for the courthouse. And some tension started forming about the storage of the records here. There was a lot of contention between the newer residents of the city, aka the people who lived in Newtown, which is currently downtown San Diego, and then the residents who lived in Old Town, where the Whaley House was. The Newtowners wanted the offices to be moved to Newtown. Now, in some reports that I've read, Thomas Whaley was the one not allowing the offices to move out because they had a lease. So these reports basically say that Thomas was like, well, you can break your lease, but you have to pay me a bunch of money.
Yeah.
But other reports that I've read have said that it was just the Old Towners who were fighting this. So I'm not exactly sure, but there was a lot of contention. There were kind of several years of battles about this in the 1860s and 1870s. And then in 1871, Thomas Whaley was away on business, and the Newtowners raided the house to move all of the records out. The angry mob even held Anna Whaley, the mom, at gunpoint on the staircase while this happened.
Oh my gosh.
And she was held on the 9th step of the staircase, and this became known as the legend of the 9th step. So keep that in your back pocket, and we'll come back to that later.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. So that's pretty much the history of the house, and now I'm going to get into the spooky shit. So
Okay.
We're first going to start by going all the way back to before the house was even built and talk about what was on the land before.
Ooh, okay.
So, first of all, this house was built on a site that was used for public executions.
Ooh, that's even worse. That's way worse than what I said.
Yes. And there was one particular execution of somebody who is now known to be one of the biggest ghosts in the house.
Okay.
So in 1852, a man named James Robinson, who was better known as Yankee Jim, was a thief and crook in the area, and he was caught stealing a rowboat. And his punishment for this was that he was to be hanged.
Damn.
And it was likely, yeah. I know, it seems like a lot. And
Maybe
especially because he had like
somewhere.
an accomplice that only like went to jail or something. But a lot of people believe that it was because he was kind of infamous for being a thief in the area, and he had been caught stealing things before, so...
Like a repeat offender. Okay.
Right.
But death? Like, okay, different time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this was one of the most famous public executions in the town of San Diego, partially because of how the execution was kind of, like, more or less botched at first. So just another trigger warning, because I'm going to be talking about how he was killed. But I want to explain, like, why this was such a disastrous execution. So he was to be hung from the gallows, and after, they kicked out, like, a wagon that was under him, and he was hung, but his toes were still touching the ground slightly. So, it's supposed to be, like, a quick death where his neck, like, snaps, but the rope was too long, so that didn't happen, and he was basically hanging there, and it's reported that he was hanging there for up to 45 minutes before he died, just being strangled.
Wow.
And a reporter at the time explained this by saying, quote, "He swung like a pendulum."
Ew.
Yeah.
Someone should have intervened.
No, they didn't. I mean, what were... I don't know. And of course, because of the time, executions were kind of like a public spectacle with an audience. So there was an audience there watching this happen. And in that audience was Thomas Whaley. So Thomas Whaley not only knew that the execution happened there, but he literally watched it happen.
And then built a house there.
He still purchased the house to build a home for his family. I mean, I guess I kind of get it, because apparently he got the land for super cheap because, it was an execution location. But still, it was kind of like the house was doomed to be haunted from the start. And there are people who said that, like, back in the 1800s, said this house is going to be haunted.
I wonder if he just, like, didn't believe in that kind of thing, like bad vibes or,
Definitely could be. And he was a businessman, so he saw the opportunity and... Yeah.
I could see that.
So Yankee Jim is one of the main spirits that people report seeing when they visit the house. And he was actually known to have haunted the Whaleys while they were living there. He's known for making loud footsteps and leaving what looks like disembodied footprints around the house. And then there's one particular spot of the living room parlor area where there's a giant archway, and this is supposedly where the execution of Yankee Jim happened. So because of that, and because of where they were hearing noises, the Whaleys would kind of think that it was Yankee Jim haunting the house.
Makes sense.
They reported that he would continually make noises to scare them all around the house.
Okay.
So the next spirit is that of Thomas Whaley Jr. So if you remember, Thomas Jr. died. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Because he died in the house of scarlet fever. And it's reported that he has always kind of stayed close to the house. Visitors can hear sounds of tiny footsteps, crying, or giggling when no kids are around. And so a lot of people believe that that's Thomas Jr.
That's
I don't think he necessarily is, like, scaring anyone. He's just, like, playing around and people hear, like, giggling.
Yeah.
And, like, kids giggling, and they're like, oh, that's Thomas Jr. Violet Whaley, the poor sweet girl whose life was just enveloped in scandal after her husband divorced her. She is also known to haunt the house, specifically the second floor and the parlor. So after her husband's past came out and before she committed suicide, she spent most of her time on the second floor, just consumed in her sorrow, extremely depressed. So now a lot of visitors will see a young woman that kind of lingers on the second floor, and a lot of people believe that to be Violet. People also report feeling cold and feeling her sad, depressed presence in that area, which is just so sad.
That is. What a horrible, like, repetitive afterlife. Right,
I know. People also report smelling a French perfume around the house, and that was Anna's signature scent, the mom. There are also sightings of a man, which is believed to be Thomas, wearing a coat and top hat that likes to stand at the top of the stairs. So one person reported seeing him on the landing wearing, quote, a frock coat and pantaloons. And so a lot of people believe that this is kind of him, like, overlooking everything.
Okay.
And people also report that they feel and smell Thomas blowing tobacco smoke in their faces. And this is mainly women who this happens to. So, you know, okay, Thomas. But it's kind of a rude thing to do. But, you know, people are in your home, so you do you.
Yeah, that's true.
Other reported hauntings include seeing curtains move on windows that have been sealed shut. And then people also see figures in the upstairs windows, especially at night, kind of lingering long after the museum has closed for the day. Now, remember the legend of the ninth step that I mentioned? Because Anna Whaley was held at gunpoint on the ninth step of the staircase while the mob raided the house to get all the court records. So because of that, people that are going up the stairs report not only feeling her presence, specifically on that step, but they also say that they feel a horrific sense of dread and then feel as though someone is trying to stop them from continuing up the stairs. Yeah.
That's creepy.
Yeah. That one really freaked me out. In the music room, the piano is known to play itself, specifically playing turn-of-the-century songs. People also hear laughter and smell cigar smoke and perfume in this room. And then one other creepy thing, there's a lamp that has like a couple of crystals hanging off of it, and people will see like one of the crystals moving while the others stay still. So it's like it couldn't just be a breeze or something, like it's somebody touching them. Lights flicker on and off throughout the house. Windows will open up, even ones that are sealed shut. And then people hear lots of footsteps, and then one of the biggest reported things is feeling cold and just like kind of feeling that haunted presence.
Yeah, which is like a telltale sign that a spirit is a lurking.
Yeah. One tour guide that worked at the Whaley House for almost 15 years also had a really creepy experience as he was locking up one night. So his name is Victor Santana, and he was closing up and like setting alarms for the night when he heard a woman ask him, "Why are you here?" And so he got so freaked out that he ran out of the house without properly setting the alarm code. So the alarm went off and it called the police automatically. And when the police arrived, they asked to speak to the woman in the parlor, to which Victor confusedly asked, "What lady in the parlor?" And the officer told him that they saw another museum worker in costume in the parlor. And they specifically said that this woman was wearing a green gingham dress. And with that, Victor told them that he was the last guide there that night and that there was not another woman in the house. And this is pretty much everybody believes that this was Anna because she was often in the parlor drinking tea. Her ghost is often seen in the parlor, and she was also known for wearing green dresses.
Those are the kind of spirits that bother me or disturb me or scare me the most, are the ones that are, I guess, intelligent enough to recognize that you're there and, like, communicate with you. Because, like, a lot of it is kind of like that
Right.
lurking around on repeat kind of thing. But when they like talk to you or try to touch you or answer a question or something like that, that's when I'm like, okay, bye.
Yeah. Okay, this next one's kind of, I guess, a little bit more fun, I guess you can say. The Whaley family had pets, and apparently the ghosts of the pets are back playing around in the house. So they had a dog named Dolly and a cat named Winks. And people will see both a dog and cat running around the house, playing together out in the yard, or just hanging outside. And people will mention them to the staff, and the staff will be like, "We don't have pets here." Aww. And then also, like, I guess a lot of kids will be like, "Oh, I want to give a treat to the dog," or "I want to go play with the dog." And then people will have to be like, "There's no dog
There's
here."
no dog.
Yeah.
Aw.
So another spirit, and this one's really sad, but I had to include it. So another spirit is a former childhood friend of the Whaley children. So her name is Carrie Washburn, I believe, and she was from the neighborhood, and she would oftentimes come and play with the Whaley children. And apparently Anna would bake, the mom, would bake fresh cookies for all the kids in their convenience store. And one day this friend found out there were fresh cookies and ran towards the house. And she ran straight into a clothesline that was hanging. And apparently it was right at the height of her neck. So it basically, like, broke her neck.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. So she was brought into the house to try to be saved, but she died on one of the tables in the house. So that's another death inside the house, and her spirit is said to hang around the house, and people often hear laughing and like children's footsteps running around. Children or like young visitors will also tend to have conversations with children in the house, like conversations with quote unquote people at their like height level that are not actually there. And there's one story of an experience that a police officer had at the Whaley House, and this one just gives me like full-on heebie-jeebies. And what's actually interesting about this is the police officer did not tell anyone about this experience until he retired from the force.
Because probably no one would take him seriously, and he didn't want to be, like,
Right.
embarrassed, but wow.
Right. But he, like, fully believed it, and as soon as he retired, he was like, I'm telling everyone.
Yeah.
So he had been called to the house because someone had seen a woman in distress crying out behind the house. And when he arrived, he saw the woman crying, and he approached her, and he said that she was wearing period clothing and was crying, as the witness had mentioned. But he asked, quote, "Are you all right, ma'am?" And when he said that, the woman looked at him, smiled, and then disappeared. So this is believed to be Violet because, you know, that's where she took her life. And yeah. Okay, so there's just a few more things that I discovered while watching the BuzzFeed Unsolved episode about this house, which I highly recommend you guys go watch. It is so fucking creepy.
Is it on Netflix?
No, it's just on YouTube.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. I literally never watch spooky stuff. Like, you know, I don't watch scary movies. I don't watch spooky stuff. I get way too scared, but I watched it for you guys, and I got thoroughly freaking terrified. So now I'm telling you all to go watch it so you can be just as terrified, but I'll tell you a couple things here, and I will link it in the show notes so you guys can go watch it yourself. So the host, Shane and Ryan, went to the house, and one of the things that they asked for while they were there were for spirits to give Ryan like a shiver up his spine if they were present. And they were sitting there for a while, and then Ryan like began feeling super weird, just like out of it, and then all of a sudden a shiver ran up his spine. And it was so creepy, like seeing his reaction, because he was saying, "You guys probably don't believe me, but this literally just happened."
Yeah.
So they didn't find too many other creepy things, you know, they tried to do, and
EVP.
What is it? EVP.
Yeah.
Didn't pick anything up. So finally they were in the parlor, and they were trying to summon Yankee Jim right near that archway that is said to be where he was hung from. And so Shane went first, and nothing happened, and he actually said he felt really peaceful. And then it was Ryan's turn, so he was sitting there, and nobody else was in the room with him, and suddenly he heard a whisper in his ear. And his initial reaction was like, "Who's messing with me? Somebody has to be messing with me."
Right.
And they actually like played the audio in the episode that it picked up, and it was just, you couldn't make out what it said, but it was creepy. Like, there was definitely audio there.
Like a disembodied voice type thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that, friends, is the story of the most haunted house in America. And I am now going to rid myself of all of this knowledge from my brain, especially because I'm home alone right now, and it's getting dark, and I don't want to think about this. So to all the ghosts, I respect you. You are amazing, and I would like to never think about you again. Thank you for allowing me to tell this story, and
go sage your house.
Yeah. So that's the story of the Whaley House. I had a lot of fun looking into it, but I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little freaked out right now, so I'm not happy that this is the evening Robert is not home, but it's fine.
Yeah, you'll be okay.
Yeah.
I mean, you are in California, but you're far enough away to where I think you're all right.
Yeah, hopefully. So, yeah, do you have anything else to add, Andrea?
That was really good. I wonder, it makes me wonder, because, you know, I used to really like Ghost Adventures, but like it's kind of cheesy now. I wonder if I'm sure they've been there. I kind of want to watch the episode and see what they quote unquote discovered.
Right. All right. You'll have to watch that, and then you can tell me.
Tell you about it.
Watch that.
Yeah. I think it's cool that BuzzFeed did it, and they didn't like zhuzh it up a bunch and make it like real.
Right.
You know?
They really didn't. And it was like a 15-minute episode, and a good portion of it was them telling the history of the house. Yeah. So it was good. And you could tell that they definitely weren't just trying to do stuff just for views.
Yeah, that's cool. I'll have to watch that too. That sounds good. So yeah, that was really good.
I'll post some photos and stuff on our Instagram as always, so you guys can see the house and how magnificent it was. And if I can find any photos of the hauntings and spirits and stuff, I'll post those. But honestly, I don't want to even look it up, but I will.
I don't want it on my phone.
Yeah, literally. But yeah, so that'll be on our Instagram at Inhuman_podcast. And also be sure to join our Facebook group, which is at Facebook. If you just search Inhuman, a true crime podcast, we're there.
Yep.
And if you guys have any case suggestions, send them to our email, which is in our link tree. And we also have everything always linked down below in the show notes. Mm-hmm. I don't know why I said down below, because I mean, I guess it is kind of below, but I'm used to like YouTube.
Yeah, because you have to scroll down below to get to it. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So yes, I'm gonna go forget about ghosts, make chili, and not think about ghosts. But
and again, in case you were confused, she's not gonna think about ghosts.
Just in case you needed to know that again.
She's gonna turn every light on in her house.
I literally will. I'm so freaked out right now.
Close every closet door.
Yeah. So yeah, I hope that everybody enjoyed this episode. I hope that you have a super fun start to your Hallow weekend. And don't forget to tune in to our special extra episode on Saturday. I'm also thinking we can post like our family's costumes on our Instagram, and then you guys can tell us what your costumes are going to be.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear. And yeah. Thank you guys so much for listening. Don't forget to leave a rating and a review if you haven't. Subscribe, follow, do whatever you can on whatever platform you're listening on. We love you guys so, so, so much. And until our spooky bonus episode on Saturday, keep it human.
Bye.